From IBM TV International Broadcast Media, this is your report from Washington. With 6 days left, let's take a look around the world. First, here at home. From AP News, Biden vowed Wednesday not to campaign, quote, on the false promises of being able to end this pandemic by flipping a switch, end quote. Biden also argued that the Supreme Court could dismantle Obamacare and leave millions without insurance coverage. Even if I win, it's going to take a lot of hard work to end this pandemic. I do promise this. We will start on day one doing the right things, end quote. Trump, under attack for his handling of the worst health crisis in more than a century, breezily pledged to, quote, vanquish the virus. The world is watching the election. And in Mexico, a week before the U.S. elections, expectations are unusually low given that they may have more at stake than any other country. Mexicans would be glad to see a more neighborly president who hasn't called Mexicans rapists or threatened to build a wall against them. Quote, no Mexican, no human being likes to be called a rapist, a thief, told that you're not liked, end quote, said Ana Zanata, a political science professor at Monterrey Technological and Anuhak universities in Mexico City. Quote, the least that any human being and the Mexicans in this bilateral relationship can hope for is respect, end quote. In Beijing, Chinese leaders hope Washington will tone down conflicts over trade, technology, and security if Biden wins. But any shift is likely to be in style, not substance, as frustration with Beijing increases across the American political spectrum. U.S.-Chinese relations have plunged to their lowest level in decades amid an array of conflicts over the pandemic, technology, trade, security, and spying. At the least, Biden's policy, quote, won't be as emotional and ridiculous as Trump's, end quote, said Yu Wanli, a professor of international relations at Beijing Language and Cultural University. Now, while the world will be closely watching, some leaders will be watching with a magnifying glass. Benjamin Netanyahu has praised Trump as the, quote, greatest friend Israel ever had in the White House. In return, Trump has delivered a series of diplomatic gifts to Netanyahu, recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital, withdrawing from Obama's nuclear deal with Iran, and offering a Mideast plan that heavily favors Israel over the Palestinians. The White House brokered the establishment of diplomatic ties between Israel and the UAE and Bahrain. This close relationship has undercut Israel's traditional bipartisan support in Washington and alienated many. For Britain's Boris Johnson's bombastic style and populist instincts have often been compared to Trump's, and the two have struck a friendly relationship. Trump's enthusiasm for Brexit helped Johnson talk up the prospects of securing a quick U.S. trade deal now that Britain has left the European Union. Still, London and Washington differ on many international issues, and a Biden victory could restore relative normality in transatlantic relations. For India's Modi, the right-wing populist prime minister, and Trump are known for a similar style of leadership, deeply rooted in using nationalistic sentiments. Biden has been vocal about India's controversial decision to revoke the Muslim-majority region of Kashmir's semi-autonomy, the state of religious freedom in the country, and generally the oppression of Muslims. Now, for Saudi Arabia's King Salman and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed, the de facto ruler of UAE, their countries welcomed Trump's withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal and the imposing of sanctions that have sent Iran's economy into a freefall. Trump also stood by Saudi's leaders after the killing of Washington Post writer Jamal Khashoggi in late 2018. These two monarchs fear Biden would renew engagement with Iran and focus greater attention on human rights. For Iran's Ayatollah Khamenei, Trump's unilateral withdrawal from the nuclear deal subsequently led to Iran resuming its activities. Tensions ratcheted up in a series of incidents, culminating with an Iranian missile attack on the U.S. forces in Iraq after an American drone strike killed a top Iranian general. Biden has said that he's willing to sit back down with Iran if it honors the limits of the nuclear deal. And then there's Russia. Who knows what Putin wants, or, more importantly, what Trump owes him? Finally, the current COVID death toll from Johns Hopkins is over 227,663 American souls lost and 1,172,684 global souls lost with no vaccine in sight. That is your report for October 29, 2020 from IBM TV, International Broadcast Media. Smart television for a smarter global community, from dictatorships to democracies around the world. Good morning, good afternoon, good night. I'm Bill Trezevant.